You ready?
Well, hello everybody. This is the Parishscope, basically the podcast that acts as a news as an arm, I guess, if you will, of the newsletter called the Parishscope at St. John Sam Prairie. I'm Pastor Chris Ansom.
And I'm Casey Dreamus. I'm the creative worship director at Our Savior Lutheran in Washington.
And we also have a special guest with us tonight. I say tonight. I never know when anybody's actually paying attention. Like, they're probably listening to this in the morning. Going, what's going on, Pastor Chris? But anyway, we have Jerry Meyer with us tonight. I brought special counsel for the election. I needed the big guns for this. So,
sorry.
You said
anyway.
You said the big dogs, didn't you?
I did. Yeah,
so.
That's I said it right.
And there's deer out there. There's nothing I can do about it.
No, yeah. You can only do what you can do. I've had my dogs in here in the past, and I have to quickly hit the mute button before they climb on my lap or something. I'm like, no, not right now.
I'm like, yeah, I'm hoping that the deer passes here. No. Hang on, I'm going to mute this for 1 second. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, everybody, you get live action here at the Parishscope. Absolute live action.
It's raw.
It's raw,
real,
uncut, unedited. Actually, we have edited in the past, but not much and not often. So yeah. This is what it is.
So you see how well.
So
you see how well I'm listened to.
So we're gonna start right. We got big news tonight. Big news in the convention world. So we're gonna start off with our convention information.
And I see another
convention update
in the furnace with them.
Your source for the latest news and announcements from the 2026 Lutheran Church Missouri Synod National Convention taking place this July.
Evident that's not where I was.
Stay connected, stay informed.
Well, all right. Well, again, I said we had some big news, and I think we do. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jerry now to inform us. What's going on?
Well, I've been following these elections for the presidency, and we had a runoff. And as a few hours ago, the Pastor Harrison won by 50.1% of the vote over Joel Bierman with 47.9%. But that really was 110 votes. And Pastor Paul got 100 votes for 2%. So this was very interesting to watch. And and that was the big thing, was to watch. Understanding that as I'm a converted Catholic, when the Pope is elected, all you do is look for smoke. Is it black or is it white? And all of a sudden I found out, wow, we can watch this whole process take place as a Lutheran. And they publish the results, and they have the runoffs and the percentages, and you know who got votes and who didn't get votes by the percentage. You know how many people voted, how many didn't. Whereas with the Catholic Pope, it's all supposedly in secrecy. So I found it very interesting. And I also found it very interesting that each candidate was not wanting to come off as a politician, by no means. But human nature being as human nature, their supporters did. I discovered.
Yeah.
And that was interesting. I listened to podcast after podcast, interview after interview, and it was an interesting thing for me because of all those hours, I learned not only about the candidates, but so much more about the faith and about our church. And it was close. It was close, but I will say this: the observation, I think, from watching all of it was, well, it was 110 votes. Oh, what would cause that? Because in the past, and I got to admit, I joined the church 2018, and every time before there was no second vote. If I'm correct, Pastor, there never was.
No, This is so Harrison got elected in 2010, and this is the first time there's ever been a runoff. He's always just won swimmingly with the over 50%, pretty much first go.
So I noticed that Joel Bierman was running, and I have to admit that I would sneak in on YouTube's to some of the seminaries lectures that he would do, and I sort of and Pastor Noah really got hooked on Joel Bierman's teachings and watching him, but it was close, and my observations were, after listening to many of these podcasts and many of our pastors throughout the Missouri Synod, was that everybody was taking note that we are losing members of the church, and so we need a change. After all these years, let's turn the ship around. That kind of was a sentiment, and but all churches are losing members, except possibly the Catholic faith, which is a story all its own. But and then there was the sentiment that, well, Harrison said it was his last term, so why don't we make the change now? And I'm not for sure just change in itself was that convincing, or were the people that convincing. What I did find so noticeable was that Bierman was so respected as a professor. He taught so many of the pastors who were voting, who absolutely loved him. And it was interesting. He basically, in my opinion, ended up having the same name recognition in an election as the incumbent. And so that was very odd, I think, to happen. But it did. So that may explain why the vote was so close. I don't know. What does it all mean? I think it's healthy myself. It was really nice experience for me. And it's going to be interesting to see how the convention comes out. Probably drove Pastor nuts with all my texts and so forth.
No, not at all.
But, from a viewpoint, my viewpoint is the election was done strictly by the bylaws. It was it was an opportunity for everybody to be heard in whatever way they wanted to be heard, in a I thought a very polite way, and it's important. It's an important thing, and evidently to me, that we follow the rules. And it appeared that the bylaws were followed. So it was an election done by the rules, and that's that. I think that speaks highly of what happened here. Now, I got to say, Casey, I couldn't help myself. I had to look tonight on some of the comments, and I've heard you in the past talk about it. So I roll over to Facebook, which I don't usually look at a lot of stuff on Facebook, but I do look at some sites, and so the sometimes the comments to me are actually more interesting than some of the features. But the comments were overwhelming. I thought, congratulations, may God bless, and this is a wonderful thing. And let's all pray. There were a few where, hey, come on, guys, 50.1% is not exactly an overwhelming mandate. That was, I would say at this point in time, and it's only been a few hours, that's pretty much a minority comment. But I do, here's the comment I love. This is the one I think says it all. Quote, "What can I say? We're Lutherans. We don't like change." Unquote.
No, there's some truth in that, I think.
So, I mean, I will say that reading Harrison's comments about winning the election, he made a very a comment I think that is very going to be playing out very congenial, and that is, I had prepared a concession speech thanking Joel for standing, noting how blessed we are in the LCMS to have such a capable theologian as our new president. That was going to be his concession speech, and he thought about that. And I found that to be insightful and says a lot about the man's heart. And so what does all this mean to us now going forward? I'm going to defer to Pastor on that, but to me, it's just been like, wow, I got to see this happen.
It's like I said, it's definitely been a good while since we've seen this much debate take place, and and obviously you were there to see, as I call it, the in my opinion, it's probably the worst part about our synod is the fighting. I just don't like the fighting, and I get it. It's part of it. It's part of the process. Steel sharpens, iron sharpens iron kind of thing. But yeah, I just personally, it just makes me cringe, especially the way some of these people argue and fight. But what I will really say though is with Harrison, I've always said Harrison is a good president. He is. He was maybe a little concerning at first because of how he almost seemed like so ultra right, so to speak. But he has turned into truly a great president, and so I don't really have any complaints with that. And I think, again, to kind of comment on that, like you were right, a lot of the conversation has been around, well, we dropped 40% over the last, 16 years. So for those of you that don't know, that's how long Harrison has been, right? He was elected in 2010, and now it's 2026. So he's been our president for 16 years. And we've seen some of the largest drop in numbers in his stead. But to put that at his feet and suggest that he's the one that did that is wildly incorrect. Anybody that did statistics knew it was coming. Like there were so many red flags going on within our synod, and it not just our synod, but the whole, Christianity as a whole throughout the United States. These things were all over the place, and they were starting to write books about them already, and we all knew this was coming. And so the fact that our membership rolls and numbers have dropped is not surprising. And it can't necessarily be laid on his feet. Now we could say, well, we wish he would be more like this or more like that. But, at the end of the day, Harrison has been truly a good president. I think Bierman would have made a good president as well, but you know what? He didn't win. Harrison did. And Harrison's a good president. So, I'm not mad at the result.
Yeah.
So,
no, I thought it was, fairly done. And, I have to say the man led us through COVID, and that was a difficult thing, and that was a leadership thing, and I think he's going to continue to be leader.
Yeah. So Jerry, you weren't with our synod back in the day, but if you go back to like 2010, 2011, or whatever it was, there was a really big debate, and they asked a group of church leaders to stand before Congress, and Harrison was there. And some of the words that he said there were truly inspiring. And like if you, I can't remember, and I didn't prepare for the show, I didn't look this up, but I can't remember exactly when it was. But I remember there was 3 church leaders. One was the Church of England and some other big church, but they were supposed to stand before Congress to explain their position on some stuff. And Harrison was there, and some of his words were just excellent.
I think the man can lead, and I think he takes he takes on the challenge. I like Bierman too. I mean, I think Bierman is an outstanding professor, but I can't say anything that I would have done anything differently in terms of my thinking. I think I'm not like you. I mean, Harrison's done well, and there's nothing to be complaining about, and you certainly cannot blame him for the drop in membership.
Now, you guys kept up with this, and so I was wondering what type of things did they were talking about, how maybe there's some things that need to be updated or changed. Was there anything specifically they were discussing that you thought was interesting?
The thing that I found the most across the board, which quite frankly is the same issue that the legal profession is facing right now, is what do we do about the shortage of pastors, and should we be doing more distance learning to alleviate our pastor shortage, and as well as more live streaming of church to increase our membership and participation? That was a big issue, I thought. I don't know if other people did, but that kept coming up in various podcasts and interviews. And that was a split, obviously, among some of the people. And then another one was Bierman does, and Pastor and I talked about this, has a very, I think, different opinion of self-defense. And it's one that I have a problem with in terms of even the legal aspect of it. And I think that was a hot point for some people, because we've always lived in a violent era, but living in the era that we hear more about it, and people are afraid. And we have, the security issues at churches. People have been shot in church, and
Mm-hmm.
that those two issues to me seem to be the ones that were most talked about.
Oh wow, okay, it's interesting to hear.
Yeah, so he had some pretty wild views, and in my opinion, wild views about self-defense and the ability ultimately to use lethal force, even if you were the one who was being attacked. He seemed to be against it. But this is a thing that I thought, and I've spoken. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't know if I've ever spoken on the podcast about this, but even if he would have won, I don't think he would have been able to pass any type of resolutions through. I just don't. There's just too many, for lack of a better term, gun-toting conservatives. We're not, they're just never going to get that kind of a resolution, passed. And so I didn't fear that one. The distance education one was a big one. I think he could have definitely influenced that. There's already been some debates within our Synod over that one. Like we had, and I should say this was an old classmate of mine. Him and a group of guys got together, and they basically started an online seminary. And they wanted to, in essence, become like an RSO, which is basically an arm of the Synod, not quite synodical, but something that's almost like been given the synodical blessing. And so they wanted to be an RSO so that people that came through their seminary could possibly be ordained. And it created a little bit of a hubbub. And their whole argument was, we need this. We're going to run out of pastors. And just so, we can put this all into perspective, last update I was given, we had over 600 vacancies in our Synod. And to be honest, that's huge. The last time we had, well, actually, I don't know if we've ever had this many vacancies, but the last time we even came close to this, we're talking like the 70s after the walkout. There was a huge walkout in 1974, and we lost a lot of pastors with the walkout. And I think that's the last time that we've ever been in this kind of a shortage. So pastors are few and far between is basically what it comes down to. And they're retiring, and we're not replacing. Last year's graduating class at St. Louis was like 35.
Yeah.
And to put that into perspective, my class was like 139.
Oh, wow.
So it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, that's an interesting discussion, because the way the world is now, there's so many people who are doing online jobs, working from home, and do you go along with that, or do you try to stick to your guns and not? Or so I shouldn't have said that term, but do you try to do do it the traditional way, or it's a hard debate. It is.
Yeah. Well, it is a hard debate, and the reality is that I think the more this goes forward, it'll probably end up in some form of a blend. But at the same time, it's like, and we've talked about this, Casey, and like, some of my most formative years were done at seminary, and I do think it would be a disaster to truly get rid of the residential education, and not to mention like online learning. Like, I just know it's just not the same, and you just don't learn as much. There's something about being, not just class time, but like, our professors lived on campus, and we oftentimes had times where we'd interact with them. They would eat lunch with us,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, so it's not just the stuff that's in the classroom that you're missing, but it's all the other stuff as well. Not to mention you get together with all your friends, and like, I mean, my friends, my friends and I used to sit around and get into big old debates over adiaphora, and it's like, you don't get that, and that's all part of the growing experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there is something that's lost if you don't have some form of residential education. But again, I also don't necessarily know if that's the answer in terms of like with online programs increasing. how do you test them? How do you judge them?
Yeah.
I-
Well, and
is-
if you did something more like if they started something that's kind of like you go straight into working at a church, but you're like almost like a trade where you have somebody who's training you as you're doing it and like working with you as you're doing it and supervising. I don't know. I mean, while we're all here, we might as well just solve the problem ourselves. But yeah, it's
it's
definitely
true. We should.
and
I'll solve it.
and it's interesting because I mean I understand because like you had that experience, so it's a very like you experienced that firsthand and got to see like how great it was. But then there's like I don't know, there might be other paths that maybe are could cause a different viewpoint or a different I don't know, maybe something positive could come of it, but unless they would have to really be behind that though. So
Yeah. I mean, again, it is an interesting thing to kind of think about. And it'll be interesting to watch because we definitely need new pastors. We need pastors to come out. So,
yeah.
yep. All right. Anybody else got anything else for the topic at hand?
No, we just wait now to see what happens.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. No. Now here's the thing. I kind of got some equipment and got it over for Jerry, so she's got that. I basically asked her to come along all the way through the convention at least because and here's the thing. Like I said, to me it is you see some of the worst of our synod, and I don't love it. I'll pay attention. I'll watch. It is important, so I do pay attention, but I also know that I can sometimes get lost in the legalese, and since Jerry has a little bit more of a background in that, I figured she could actually help us all dissect that and dissect it a little bit more to understand it, because there's going to be a lot that are going to come through. The actual convention starts on July 18th, but I guarantee you their workbooks are going to start coming out here pretty soon if they haven't already.
I did happen to see some of the workbooks on the website already, although I don't think I can download them. But I did find some things that about different readings that will take place, so on and so forth. And again, it's very methodical, and I know that people don't like to hear that, but that is an important part of any process is to be methodical sometimes, and it looks to me, from what I can see, what I've been able to download, it's going to be methodical.
Yes. So I went to what was it? Was it 2013 or something like that? I went to that convention, the one in St. Louis, and I remember they have a parliamentarian. They actually have basically a person that's hired as a parliamentarian to make sure that everybody follows Robert Rules of Order. So it is very methodical.
It is. And remember, Robert's Rules of Order can also be a subject of debate. So it can sometimes get worse than better with it. But I think I don't think we're going to see any fist fights. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, fair enough. You won't, but you'll get some people that get pretty heated when they come up to the microphone. They live stream the whole thing. Were you were around for the last convention, Jerry, weren't you? So did you live stream the
No,
last
I did
one?
not. I wish I would have now. I didn't realize that.
Oh boy, you're in for a joy of a time. For like 6 hours a day for a week, live stream heaven.
Which is probably why I don't agree with some distance learning. I don't know.
Oh man, pure awfulness. my real opinion's coming out. Oh man. Okay. Well, with that being said, are we ready to move on to our next segment, the No Stupid Questions?
If you're ready, yeah.
All right, here we go.
It's time for No Stupid Questions, the segment where Casey gets to ask anything, and we mean anything about the church. No judgment, no filter, just honest answers. Let's get into it.
All right.
Okay.
What do you got for me? What do you got?
Well, this might be good because with Jerry being here, my lack of IQ is even more on display. Which this is kind of
no.
talk, this is a good question for this because I recently saw a video online that was talking about this whole subject about knowledge and um, partly like getting into Ecclesiastes 1:18, which is for which much wisdom comes much sorrow, the more knowledge the more grief. Now that's the NIV version. I don't know, which one you're always is there a specific version that LCMS does?
Yeah, there is a one that we use, and so basically the way this works is our publishing house has to choose a version because then that our catechism, our lectionaries that we give to the various churches, all that stuff has to be in sync. So we do use a singular Bible. We typically use the ESV, the English Standard Version. NIV is not a bad one. Well,
I like it's the tone. I just like this. It's not bad. It's just not good.
Well, so the NIV committee. So like these Bible translations, these are created by like committees of people that they go over every sentence, over every word, and they try to figure all these things out. And the NIV basically. So basically, you want to stay as close to the center as you can. And so on one side is the really literal translation. On the other side is the much less literal, but much more poetic. And there's a lot of poetry in the Bible. And there's a lot of things where, like, Paul is using wordplay or Jesus is using wordplay. And like the poetic side will try to maintain that. And so in a sense, that's actually can be accurate. But on the other hand, like with the literal translation, it's going to be very jagged. It's going to be hard to read. It's going to be, so you want to try to stay right in the middle, like write a good combination between the two. And that's what the NIV is trying to do. And that's what the ESV is trying to do. But they're on two different sides. The ESV tends to be a little bit more literal and a little less poetic. The NIV seems to fault on the other side. It seems to be a little bit more poetic and a little less literal.
Yeah.
And each of them causes their own kind of, dare I say, set of problems.
Gotcha. Well, okay. Well, I pulled up the English Standard Version here. And so this one, you decide which one's more poetic. This one says, "For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow."
Okay.
I mean, vexation, that's a pretty hefty word for me, but I just wonder because that's you talk about the tree of knowledge, and there's this kind of came up because there was a quote from shoot, I can't remember what which philosopher or whoever it was, but they said that the man who knows too much doesn't belong anywhere or something like that. And then I kind of was looking like, okay, let me kind of look into this, and then this popped up. And
I don't know. I know that particular philosophy.
Was it Nietzsche?
I want to say it sounds almost like Socrates, but because like that was Socrates' whole thing, right? Like he's the smartest man ever, and like he's just nobody's as smart as him. Everybody's stupid.
Right. I think it was like Nietzsche or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Not as which is he's got a lot of issues in there, but I do, I mean, it is kind of an interesting subject, but I also need to probably like read around. I've never really dived into Ecclesiastes, so I should probably like try to understand more exactly everything about that book. But I kind of wonder what your thoughts are. It's like, is us, gaining knowledge just, or I'll say this from somebody like what someone on the outside would ask is like, is this gaining knowledge is a bad thing, or is it just like they're trying to suppress us so we're not smart enough to know how stupid Christianity is? Okay,
so when you're asking a question about Ecclesiastes, you need to ask yourself two questions. First of all, is it considering the entire book? And second of all, what part of the book are you pulling from? Ecclesiastes is kind of it's an interesting book. It's a great book to read, but it's hard to do a Bible class on it because it's meant to be read like all at once.
Oh, okay.
So Ecclesiastes basically we're following this guy Quoleth, and this is written by Solomon, King Solomon, and he's basically talking about how basically he's stripping off the world around you. He's like just tearing you down, right? Like just nothing is good. I look out and I see things, but none of it is good. It's all bad. If I work really hard, I still die. If I don't work at all, I still die. Everything's bad. Depressed. And then all of a sudden he's kind of starts going to like this whole idea of like the foundation is built on God, and it's only in God that we can seek, like true joy for what it is, and so on and so forth. So you're pulling from 1 verse 18. So that's at the beginning. He's tearing you down.
Right.
And this is tearing you down without a foundation. And that's, by the way, that seems to be a big theme for Solomon's books. He wrote Song of Songs, which this isn't that kind of show, so we're not going to talk about Song of Songs. No, I'm joking. But he also wrote like Proverbs, and like most people don't really get Proverbs either, because you got to start. So Proverbs, when it starts at the very beginning of the book, he goes into this like big long thing about wisdom, and he calls wisdom Sophia because that's the word for wisdom. And he talks about how wisdom, to be true wisdom, has to be foundationed on God, and if it's not foundationed on God, then it's not truly wisdom. And then after that, he gets into what's known as and commonly referred to as wisdom literature, which is where we get our word proverb from. Like it's just like a little saying that's grounded in wisdom. But the whole point of that wisdom literature is you're supposed to say it, like, for instance, if you're at a kitchen table, read a proverb sometime and then say, okay, how do we make sense out of this? And then as you guys discuss it around the table, that's the whole point.
Yeah.
Like that's the point of Proverbs. Sit around the table, talk about it. And I think a lot of people get it wrong, because what happens is we have a tendency to go, no, tell us what it means. And it's like, when you do that, when it's like you come in with a book of definitions and you say, this is what it has to mean, that's when you tend to basically shut down conversation. And Proverbs is all about having this conversation with this little nugget of wisdom that, if you look at it with the foundation of God and who he is, it is extremely wise, but you have to look at it from that grounding. There's going to be examples of it where it doesn't make any sense at all. The one famous one is like, don't be around any woman that winks at a man or something like that. I forget how it's worded, but it's like, you go, well, in what instance would that make any sense? And it's like, that's the point.
Yeah.
Find an instance where that makes sense and then talk about it with your foundation on God and his word. And now you understand the point of wisdom literature. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. Oh, sorry. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, like, you asked a question about Ecclesiastes 1 verse 18, and, not having it out in front of me, I would say, I'd want to look at it in terms of, where it is in the book. It's at the beginning of the book. He's trying to tear you down a little bit. And in essence, look at this in terms of having a ton of wisdom, but no foundation. And that's kind of what he's doing. He's kind of saying, like, look, you can have all this wisdom, but if you have no foundation, and again, this is going to increase, like, right. As he goes through this, the book gets really depressing because he's just tearing everything down. Like, there's no joy.
Yeah. Sounds like my type of book. Yeah.
What a fun read.
Well, that's what's funny is like that video I saw where they're talking about, the philosopher Nietzsche, which I don't know a lot about, but I do know that I think he was like an inspiration to like Hitler and some of those people, I believe. Like he quoted him, I think, a lot. So I
think that's unfair because they quoted Luther a lot. And actually, I'll ask Jared. Jared, did you ever study Nietzsche at all?
He
okay.
I think he got misquoted a lot, in the same way that
I would agree with
because
that.
Again, I think he's one of those type of people. You got to read the entire subject that he's talking about from front to back, because he has a cutting way of writing that I think would let anybody who wants to make their point take out of context. Kind of a dangerous author
Yeah.
in that regard.
Well, that's kind of how society is in general now with social media, is that you can just take snippets of things and then, or they take a clip of somebody and they take it completely out of context and then go, oh, look how horrible this person is. And that's not, that's not what they were saying in the 5-minute conversation, but in the 20 seconds, it sounds really bad. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, and
so one of the big things that Nietzsche did, and one of the things that he's known for, is the quote that God is dead. And to Jerry's point, that particular quote is taken way out of context. And again, I didn't study Nietzsche that much. I read a few things from him and a little bit of this and that. And so Jerry can speak probably a little bit better on this topic. But even that quote, he's talking about culture, and he's talking about the people and how they're getting rid of their faith and their religion, and they have no bounds. And he's basically saying, you guys are acting as if God is dead. And the quote everybody says is, oh, Nietzsche says God is dead.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I do feel like when the video I saw, the person's talking about how the people who are really observant and they kind of see all the behind the scenes stuff, and they have a tendency to know what's really going on, they feel like they don't belong anywhere. And my thing is, I kind of take that as, well, when you know that everything's broken, and for instance, like, churches are made up of sinners, so we all have our issues, and no church is going to be run perfectly because we're sinners. And it just makes me think even more so that that's why we need God, because it's not perfect. So I don't know. That's how I took it, at least.
Yeah. And again, I think sit down, read the whole book.
Yeah, no, I'm going to.
And Jerry knows more about Nietzsche than I do.
I have to admit, I kind of lost patience, with trying to work some of it. Yeah.
What? No,
I did.
So did you, is like philosophers and stuff, is that stuff you like in general, or is that something you studied for what you did as a career?
Up with a political science degree from Bradley before I went on to law school, but those were the days when your major really could morph into something more. So I really did more political philosophy, and philosophy is right next door to the theology, which then I went to a Jesuit law school and got into more theology. So it's just something that was very interesting to me. But when you go to a Jesuit, in those days, when you went to a Jesuit school, it was Jesuit. There's no.
Yeah. That's that's well, I just wonder, because I never I studied music business in college, and I didn't really, I took a management course, and I had no idea that it's basically a big gigantic psychology class, because you're talking about how to work with people, and you're talking about people's tendencies, and I just never thought about that. So I was wondering, with doing anything in law, if you are studying philosophy all the time, or if that's, to me, as an outsider, I would just think, well, you're just kind of learning what the laws are and figuring out all that. But
actually, the best training for a lawyer is to take hard reads. Anything that's hard reading, as we used to call it, philosophy, anything that's hard to read, literature, try on 18th century English literature. Good. And the studies show that those students, because when I was at Bradley, was teaching some of these things, those students who do the hard reads are the ones who, oddly enough, perform the best on the standardized law entrance exam. I didn't, but most of them did.
Yeah. No, I was always fascinated by philosophy, and I took a lot of philosophy classes in college, in undergrad. Not enough to be a minor or anything, but probably close enough. Like I took a lot of philosophy classes, but ironically enough, we hardly spent any time with Nietzsche. And I actually read more of Nietzsche after college than I did during college. But even so, it makes a very small amount. I just have not read him very much.
Yeah, I have a side note. Talking with some of the professors on the philosophy side of Bradley Hall and theology professors of the Department of Religion, Nietzsche was actually talked about more in the religion courses than some of the philosophy courses, unless it was a seminar dedicated to him. At that time, yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah. Well, again, I know the big famous quote of "God is dead," but
Mhm.
I also know the context of that one. There is a book that I have. What is it? I read it a long time ago, and it was like, philosophy you need to know for theology or something like that. And it's a big old book, but it's fascinating. But it has a snippet with the "God is dead" thing from Nietzsche. So I remember reading
I
into
think it
that
was
a little bit.
a good draw to get your enrollment in.
Interesting.
It's like, yeah, I want that part.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Oh man.
You were saying how the
Yeah.
hard read didn't work for you. I always joke because, like, as a musician, there's all these studies that are like saying music makes you smarter, and I just personally, I think that when they say like, well, people who are good at music, they have higher math scores, and it's like, well, also think the people whose parents make them practice their instrument probably
Mhm.
also make their kids do their homework. And so that's my kind of thing, because my grades did not increase when I started doing music. I was not like, I was really good at music. That's what I was good at, but it wasn't like my English scores skyrocketed into being even better because I didn't do I wasn't good at my English stuff. So I just, it just makes me laugh. So that made me think of it because, I don't know what it is
I mean, I
about those
couldn't
things, but
figure out when I took the law boards that my test was all about nuclear science and that kind of stuff. I had no idea because at that time, back in the 70s, there was no advisors as such. I shouldn't say I had a good advisor
oh
called
yeah.
Con Law, but there was no advisor. So I said, I want to go to law school. So the guy goes, well, you got to take the LSAT. You got to register. It's in 3 weeks. And I go, oh, and and actually, when I was advising, if I had students who were in their practice exams not doing well, it didn't really, say that they were not going to do well. A lot of it was just practicing the exam. Uh, we would just do practice after practice, and then they
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting.
All
It is
right.
interesting. Yeah. That's
Yeah, I was actually listening to I really have gotten into the Carey Nieuwhoff's leadership podcast recently, and I was listening to one of his most recent one, not the most recent one, but one from like I guess last week, and he was interviewing a guy, and it was really interesting because he's bringing in all these studies too, and talking about how um, we've lived in a world where everybody wants a specialist, but most studies have shown that the most successful people are truly the ones that are a little bit more well-rounded. They have a lot more areas of just they fiddled with this, they did this, they learned about that, and so on and so forth. And they're finding that out. And what he was talking about this in athletics too, because I guess he started as a sports writer, but he was talking about it in athletics too. That he's like, everybody thinks like these kids are learning all this stuff, and they're going to be like pro baseball. And he said what really happens is that most of those kids never excel. They get to a certain level, and it's a good level, and maybe they're the stars of their high school team, maybe even the stars of certain college teams, but they don't ever reach, the pinnacle. And some of that just comes from, being involved in other areas and learning other things and so on and so forth. And he's just talking about the well-roundedness of it. And I found it fascinating because, everybody kind of knows that, but yet at the same time, like to hear him say, yes, we have the research now, here it is.
Yeah. Well, see, and is that a argument for seeking out too much knowledge might make you unhappy? Maybe you have to find just the right amount. I don't know.
Well, it's like Ecclesiastes warned us on that one.
Yeah, that's right. I feel like that's what he was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel that way because I know some people who have gone really far in like the music education world, or even, I mean, and I know a guy who a guy that I used to play music with, like he now has a Grammy and all this stuff. And like, I'm not anywhere close to that level. But I'm like I get to do music as a career. I get to have my family, and it's like sometimes I think I'm the one who actually like won. I don't know if that, sometimes I feel that way, but yeah.
My dog had it. My dog's again.
Uh-oh, we good.
Yeah, my dog.
Dog
another deer. Yeah. Oh, then I relate. Yeah.
Oh, brother. Oh, man.
Well, we're losing.
All right.
We've lost. No, we lost Chris. Okay.
Yeah.
We lost Pastor
Am I
Chris
not
for a
here?
second here.
Process says
but
you're
that's
going to
okay.
lose your internet, which is usually me because I'm out in the boonies. And we talked about it. I says, are you sure I'm back on my internet? And we lost him.
Huh. Yeah. What is this?
Yeah, I know. He's I don't know what happens if he doesn't come back.
Nice conversation here,
At this point.
Yeah. One of the side notes you said about, being well rounded is I taught, of all things, I taught a psychology class. I go, what do I know about psychology? I took a couple psychology classes. But honestly, it was more on why we have, it's a great book, A Reasonable Doubt, but why people make mistakes in eyewitness identification. And it's all psychology.
Oh. Yeah. That is really, that's really interesting, I think, is, yeah. And because people remember things different all the, they mess up facts.
Yeah. And the whole book
time.
is about that. And false confessions. It's fascinating. Yep.
Yeah.
You're in.
You're heard. Yeah.
All right. Can I be heard?
Oh.
So it was wild. Like I could hear you guys, but I wasn't there. And I couldn't turn my mic on, and then it finally just completely went away and came back. So weird.
Okay, we know you have to get to other things.
Yeah.
So I missed your part of your conversation that whenever I went off and came back on.
Yeah.
Eventually, of course. Now on the top, my timer, my recording timer
48 minutes.
Reset, so I have no idea how much time we've gone through.
So yeah, I don't know if you doing your next segments here.
Oh dear. Oh dear.
Yeah. Move on.
Yeah.
We are. Are we ready for that? Okay, here we go.
Welcome now to Saints in the Shadows. Hear the stories of the saints. Learn about things you never knew. See if you can figure out who the saint is before the end.
All right. We don't have a saint today, but we have a day. We do have a day. And it's the day they would not be silent. All right. Here we go. There are moments in history when silence would be easier. Moments when compromise would be safer. Moments when a careful chosen phrase might keep the peace. And then there are moments when silence is no longer an option. Today we talk about one of those moments. We start in a city filled with tension. Rulers had gathered, armies loomed in the distance. The Ottoman threat pressed from the east, and within the empire, something far more uncertain. Disagreement, division, faith under strain. The emperor himself had called the meeting. He wanted unity. He needed unity. So he asked a question of the princes that had been gathered. Tell me, what do you believe? Now that sounds simple. Just explain yourself, clarify your position, find common ground. But nothing about this moment was simple, because the men being asked were already being watched, already being judged, already being labeled heretic, rebel, disruptor, and they knew the risk. To speak plainly might cost them power, might cost them lands, might cost them everything. In fact, it might cost them their very heads. But they prepared a document anyway. Not a rebellion, not a manifesto, a confession. It had been written carefully by a scholar we will call Phil, and a colleague of a man with the nickname of George. Measured words, clear thoughts, not meant to divide, but to clarify. Because the men behind it insisted on something bold. We are not inventing a new faith. We are returning to an old one. 28 articles. The first, calm, steady, explaining what they believed about God, about sin, about Christ, and especially one thing, that a man is justified before God, not by works, but by faith. The remaining articles harder. They pointed out abuses, practices that had grown, but not from Scripture, things that had become normal, but not so true. Now, understand this. They did not come to this city, this Augsburg, to start a new church. They came to say, we have not departed from the church, but certain things must be corrected. June 25th, the hour had come. The hall was full. Those people gathered, those princes, officials, soldiers, citizens. And instead of handing in the document quietly, instead of letting the emperor read it in private, they did something unexpected. They read it aloud. And they read it in the language of the people. Not hidden in Latin, not softened for scholars, but spoken, so everyone could hear. Article by article, line by line, truth spoken in detention. The emperor listened, the court listened, the empire listened. And for a moment, just a moment, the question wasn't political. It wasn't strategic. It was simply this. Is this the truth? The answer didn't come quickly. The confession was rejected, arguments followed, divisions remained, and yet something had changed. Because the faith, their faith, had been spoken out loud before kings. One historian later called it the day the Lutheran Church stood publicly in history. But it was more than that. It was the day conscience stood, where compromise could have lived. And here's the rest of it. The document they read did not disappear. It spread. It was copied, studied, defended. It became a foundation, not just for a movement, but for a confession that would endure for centuries. And that day, June 25th, became something more than a date. It became a reminder that faith is not only believed, it is confessed. Not just in comfort, but in risk. Not just in private, but in public. And that day that they would not be silent, what we commemorate, what we celebrate, what they did has a name too. And it's called the Augsburg Confession, presented before an emperor, Emperor Charles V, held by princes, carried by conscience. June 25th, Philip Melanchthon presented to Emperor Charles V the Augsburg Confession. And while his friend Martin Luther, who was also called, at least whenever he was in hiding, Knight George, he was not there, but he was eagerly awaiting nearby for the results. All right. Well, I'm going to stop there. That is the, dare I say, the Saint in the Shadow. Again, not quite a Saint in the Shadow. It's a day, but it's a big one. And it's for us, we're recording this on the 24th, and it is tomorrow. It is the commemoration of the Augsburg Confession. Now, for those that don't know, the Augsburg Confession is one of our confessional documents. So it's one of the documents that makes up the foundation of the Lutheran Church. not just the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, but honestly any Lutheran church. And we've talked about that in the past in terms of what kind of quote unquote subscription you have to have and yada, yada, yada. But the Augsburg Confession was presented, and basically what happened is all the princes leaned over and they said, basically, this is what I believe. You can take my head. And the emperor basically said, no heads, I don't want to take your head, kind of thing. And so in the end, it was a very, very bold confession of faith. We still contain the document. We still read the document. Every single Lutheran pastor, at least in the Missouri Synod, has to subscribe to the document in one way or the other. And, I thought for the meal for tonight, I did some research, and there's this, I don't want to say it because it's wrong. Like, I don't want to mispronounce it, but it's basically a kind of, it's like Schweißachse, and it's basically a pork knuckle. Not a knuckle, it's like a ham hock, but it's baked, and then you score the skin until it's crispy.
Oh, yeah.
And of course you have to have like things like mashed potatoes and sauerkraut because we're thinking German. And then on top of that, the drink of the day has to be a good Helles, a good German lager. So you just got to. So, celebrate tomorrow. Celebrate the 25th in the Augsburg Confession.
Yeah, I don't do beer,
but
I do sauerkraut. That's
unless you don't like beer, like your Casey.
Yeah, I love a sauerkraut on a brat or something.
You do sauerkraut, not beer?
Yeah, I mean, I am, I
Oh,
am,
yeah.
like,
Well, you got to
I
do
have a
that
lot
tomorrow.
of German, so I have to have like some of that stuff,
Oh man. So there you go. That's again, Saint in the Shadow for tonight. A little bit different. I'm playing around with a few different things here and there, but
I don't
a
think
little bit different. Anything else to discuss before we move on?
Okay.
Well, fine then. Okay.
And so it ends. The light shines in the shadow. And now you know more about the story of one of the saints of history.
Well, one of the days of history, anyway. All right. Well, we gotta move. We're moving right now. We're playing with fire, right? So yeah. Now we have to go to the next one, and hopefully, I'm going to hit the right button. So bear with me. I might not.
And it's time for Lectionary Loop and our look at the upcoming lectionary texts.
Well, all right, there you go. We got a lectionary loop, and to be honest with you, so I've been on a kick with the Book of Romans. We've been slowly walking our way through Romans, and so for me, that's kind of grabbing all the attention in terms of the lectionary, and kind of for good reason. Like so during the summertime, our lectionary will flow through a singular book, and the epistle lesson is usually lined up with this. And so this year we're doing the Book of Romans. We're currently on Romans 7, just the beginning of Romans 7. And, I don't want to give too much away into my sermon and all that, but basically Paul here is wrestling with this idea of death and life, and how, through our baptisms, we're dead to sin, but yet we have a life in Christ Jesus. And so that's kind of really the big theme that seems to be going through, again, at least the book of Romans here. Now we're going to get to more, what's known as the simul justus et peccator next week, which is simultaneously saint and sinner at the same time. And so we're going to get to that next week, but this week we're just handling the fact that this death that we experience in our baptisms, that we have during our baptism, it is something that we have to have because we have to be dead to the law in order to have this new life in Christ. So that's kind of our lectionary loop for the summer. And I think we're just going to kind of do this throughout the summer. Maybe we'll start to reflect on all the books of the Bible as we get closer and closer to the fall. So there you go. All right.
We are.
I mean,
coming up to
so
an
again,
hour
my
and-
clock's a little
right,
off. So how much
and,
time do we have?
4
Where are we at?
seconds. So, oh.
Okay, in 4 seconds. It's giving me the internet. It gave me the internet issue thing again. Oh, but it went away. Okay. All right. Well, then we'll move on to our next segment then.
To our last segment, probably.
All right. Are we ready for?
Yeah.
We got it.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna record and just do that one from here on out. I like that one
agree.
better. A little bit more flair to it. So at least at St. John's Day and Prayer, we got a couple big things kind of coming up. The 150th anniversary is they're really, it's less than a year away now. So next June we'll be celebrating our 150th anniversary, and so they're collecting stories, and they're also doing a new pictorial directory, and so we're asking all the members and everything to sign up to get your picture taken, and so I'm not going to give out like phone numbers and stuff on the podcast, but yeah, so basically there's a way to sign up online. There's a way to kind of get that. If you're at church, if you download one of our bulletins, you should be able to get the information you need to make sure that you can sign up to get your family's picture taken. The first session is going to be like July 30th, 31st, and August 1st. They have another one that's going to come up in October, though. And then the next big thing, and this is actually kind of coming up really quick, and that is our annual fish fry. This is the third year doing it. And we're going to have a good old fish fry on July 17th. So mark your calendars, buy your tickets in advance. And it's all you can eat fish. It's going to be a great time. I missed it last year. I was gone last year, but the year before that, when I was actually there, it was fantastic. And boy, they've been working on perfecting their recipe. So it's just getting better and better. It really is. So, actually, now that we have Jerry here, I can ask her, what am I missing, Jerry? What am I missing?
Maybe we lost her.
Oh no. Oh no. Maybe we lost her. Poor Jerry. Yeah, man. Well, anyway, those are kind of the big things that I could think about.
We just have VBS coming up.
All right.
So,
what's going on in your neck of the
that?
woods?
I got the VBS band going, and that's been going really well. They're the Problematic Penguins in the Jungle.
And remind me of their name again.
So that's that's the name they chose. So we're going with it. And I'm fond of this one. I think it's a good one. So we got that going, and so that's just fun. We're trucking along with that. That's mostly, what we got going. Of course, the summer, I'm sure I don't know how you feel, but summer's always kind of a pretty light time of year, it seems, for us, because it's just people are traveling, and there's travel sports and stuff going on, so a lot of families are out on some weekends, and here and there. So it's just kind of we're just trucking along. Not a whole lot really to report right now, but once our Pastor Walters gets kind of acclimated and is there for a while, I think we'll start to be able to see what we kind of want to do, what the plan and vision, or whatever you want to call it, is for kind of the future, and see. So
yeah, sure. All right then. Well, all right. I don't have anything else. Does anybody else have anything else before we sign off? All right. Well, then here we go.
Bye.
I guess I hope everybody has a great night. Thanks for listening. Bye.